I'm going to begin with that final line. What's been going on? Yeah. Yes, exactly. That final line of the play, and that's Edgar to his father. Obviously, that's not just directed to those characters on the stage. It's directed to us sitting out in the audience. You said yes. This is very much a play in which complex questions are raised, but I'm not sure we would say there are easy answers provided. The title character, Mary, at the end of Act 4, and I will read a little bit more of what she says later on. She's ready to leave Leonard, who was ready to leave her at the beginning of the play when he discovered she was pregnant. So it's a wonderful symmetry to that. Mary says, "It was all wrong from the beginning. My mother told me there were men like you." The leaving, can't be right, but it's not so wrong as other things. Before we turn in our discussion to some of those large questions, what's right, what's wrong, as well as, I think, to the immense pleasure, as someone said during the interval, this is really an Edwardian soap opera. I'm loving it. Leonard is such a type. I recognize him. He's a waster. I think we would all agree with that. So let me just move you very quickly across time, purposely, backwards and forwards, with some glimpses of British social history and theatre history from the 1890s to the 1950s. Social political context. This is a play that's set in the Edwardian twilight. It's a period of seeming tranquility amidst immense social change. Pre-World War I, we know, Edward was on the throne. What you may not know about Edward is he came to the throne when he was 60. He, in some ways, you might say, was a prodigal son. You might say he was a bit of a waster. His mother, Victoria, was not always pleased. He had, let's say, relationships with the actress Lily Langtry. And he was much loved, though, when he came onto the throne. His mother, when she died, Victoria was 81. You may say, whoa, moving further into time, contemporary moments, didn't Queen Elizabeth just have her Silver Jubilee, her birth? How old is Charles? I'm not going there or into his past or anything, but you keep moving, you're making these kinds of connections. More seriously, this was a time when the Liberals, there was a reference in the play to Lord George. In 1906, half of the Conservatives lost their seats in Parliament. You were moving ahead, and of course we met the fellow who has a trade, Mary's father. We're heading towards social reform, minimum wage, national insurance, pensions, not only the servant question, but even contemporary today, the health care question. So no, I'm not going there. All right, so let me take you to the theatrical context. As Jonathan said, this play was produced in the northern city of Manchester. It's important that it's northern. The Gaiety, England's first repertory theatre. As you mentioned, that philanthropist Annie Horniman, interestingly enough, her wealth came from her father, who was a tea merchant. Remember the reference to the tea caddy early on? And of course, the tea is also referenced as Indian tea, which is taking us out to the empire as well. All of these very small links that are there. Monkhouse was born roughly at the same time as Wilde, Shaw, Pinero. You can link him in with St. John Hankin, Return of the Prodigal Son, or Granville Barker. Above all, he was a writer for that liberal paper and the Manchester Guardian. That's very important. That was his background before he started writing in his 40s. Prolific author, 10 plays, most of them we don't know, 20 novels, most of them we don't know. Geographical context is also terribly important. Again, Northern England. It's middle class. It is middle class. The stage directions say it's a suburban villa. It's a home complete with that requisite housemaid. It's a modest home contrast to if you were in Manchester and you went out into the countryside, you would encounter Chatsworth. And you might think, that's a magnificent stately home. Some of you may have been there in the Peak District. I see someone nodding out there outside of Manchester. Some of you may have not been there, but you may be thinking, not surprisingly, Downton Abbey. All right, you're thinking a popular British television series, a fictional estate in, well, not quite the Manchester area, but in the north in Yorkshire. All right, why am I mentioning that? Obvious points, 1912, upstairs, downstairs, liaisons, generational change, social labor unrest, suffragettes, class conflict, and the Great War coming on. When we look at this play, it's a compelling Edwardian play, and it's raising a lot of questions, as we would all agree. This play is certainly much more complicated than a predictable drawing room comedy. The furniture, you'll have to agree or disagree with the stage direction, is of middling taste. Depends what your tastes are. There's a lot of entertaining melodrama. There's ample melody, and I'm taking the mellow out of melodrama. The references in the play to the music halls, to Harry Lauder. Who was he? He was in the music halls dressed in his kilt. He had famous songs like Roman in the Loaming, I Love a Lass. It's important that you have that sense that popular entertainment is in this play as well as serious social drama. Monkhouse calls it a comedy. And there are those serious questions. Well, if it's merely a melodrama, who then would be the hero, the heroine, the villain, the villainess? And you can probably see where I'm going here. Just who are the people we see first? The men on stage, that patriarchal Mr. Edgar Trimble. A precise man, condescending to geniality, obviously righteous according to his lights, and obviously very trustful of his own beliefs. His aspiring bourgeois son, Edgar. Stage direction, an ordinary man, a young man in neat tweeds. And of course, there's that disruptive, that subversive, that skeptical, that egotistical son, Leonard, with a wit that is very much like some of Oscar Wilde's characters. Importance of being earnest, the bundering, which ends with, I've always wanted a brother. Yes, you remember that. Style, not sincerity, matters. That's the thing. All right, that's in this play as well. The women, they're described as ordinary middle-class women who might develop in all kinds of unexpected ways, and usually don't. All right. That's Ada and Sheila, who soon will be wed and pregnant. We also have that rather extraordinary servant lass, Mary Broom. She speaks her mind, but she's not only sensible, many of the characters say she's sensible, but she also has that streak of wildness in her. And in that way, she also resembles Mrs. Timbrell. And we will talk more about her. Later in the play, all of those classes start to cross and mix and merge together on the stage. We're meeting those respectable Pendletons, who I love, are played by the same actors playing the working class Brooms. And of course, there's the wonderful Mrs. Greaves. It's very clear that this Edwardian play doesn't break down into simple categories. We don't merely have the type characters of that earlier Victorian melodrama. Class, gender, political boundaries are being crossed and questioned all the time. Many of you went, you remembered that angry young man, that Jimmy Porter. that look back in anger, and referenced in the Granada television of the 1950s with Robert Stevens playing Leonard and also playing Dylan. Let's get to Dylan in a moment. Let's remind ourselves about Jimmy Porter. The play starts, look back in anger, in the attic of, not accidentally, an old Victorian house. He's living there with Cliff and his wife Allison. Some of his lines, very short selection, you could think of other ones. Nobody thinks, nobody cares, no beliefs, no convictions, no enthusiasm. The old Edwardian brigade do make their brief little world look pretty tempting. What a romantic picture. Phony, too, of course. It must have rained sometimes. Still, even if I regret it, somehow, phony or not, if you've got no world of your own, it's rather pleasant to regret the passing of someone else's. I must be getting sentimental, says Jimmy. Allison, at one point, says to her father, this eminent Edwardian, "You're hurt because everything has changed. Jimmy is hurt because everything's the same." Helena says to Allison, "Do you know, I have discovered what's wrong with Jimmy. It's very simple, really. He was born out of his time." And Jimmy, in his familiar, semi-serious mood, says, "There aren't any good, brave causes left." That gives you just a sense of why perhaps the connections were made by Granada television going back to Osborne. Jimmy, he is vicious. He is ruthless. I'm saving you from a lot of those lines that you know. He is angry. What ideals might there be? It's a time in the 50s of promised meritocracy. He is coming from, let's say, the rising lower class. He's got a university degree. He's marrying up, if you would like, but he's working selling sweets on the street with a stall. Angry, strident rhetoric. When Osborne writes a play toward the end of his life called Déjà Vu, looking back at Jimmy Porter, said, for Jimmy, it was more a matter of grief than of grievance. And what's the distinction between grief and grievance? You're angry at, you're grieving for. Those are the kinds of questions that I think are raised in this play as well.